Good morning. I'm Carol Ann Savage. I'm very happily here at the Corning Museum of Glass with my colleagues, and we're going to make a 6-petal stamen cane this morning. We've already started because it takes a bit more than an hour. So Jordan here has our beginning process. So we have some stamen that we've originally bundled with an elastic, and then we put the wire on it to hold it. Then of course we'll take the elastic off. And then we added that to the Maria, and I've added about the total diameter here now is about 2 centimeters. It doesn't have to be that thick, but it gives you a good basis for your 6 petals. So now I'm going to divide this with my Reichenbach stiff white. That's what we're going to be using today. That's what I find helps our flowers really pop when they're once into the beads. So I'm going to divide my little bundle into 6 so I can start the petals. Roughly, anyway. So the colors we've used, you can use any colors you like for stamen, but around our stamen I put a few layers of dark grass green and then 1 layer of lavender blue. And I'm going to swipe on 3 layers that stack on top of each other. You'll see. It's a little hard to see when you first start. That's why I put those white dots as markers.
Are the white dots for the ditch part or for the mounted part?
Say that again? Sorry.
So the white parts are for the ditches where we're going to have the indents, or is it?
No, that's where we're going to, that's for the petal. You're right. Good question. So when we start here, we're going to essentially make a triangle. So this is the center of my triangle. Then the next round will be on the sides. And you can see right away in class here we've been talking a lot about how to make an even swipe. So the end of my rod is just in the flame, and I'm moving my left hand, and as Jordan said this morning, it's like shoveling snow. So this rod is always in the flame, and I'm moving my left hand so that hopefully my swipe on there stays pretty even. All right, so we have 6 at the beginning of our triangle. I'm going to heat those up gently on either side. Take the divot out a little bit so there's no air on when I add more glass. You can marver them a little bit if you want, but you don't have to. So when I like to marver, I heat it up upside down, and then I'm going to use gravity on that side. One of the reasons I like to build my murrine from the inside out is I have the option of keeping everything hot all at the same time. So I melted the first one, and then I went to the third petals so that I could, you don't necessarily need to go all in a row. It'll start to melt too fast. Keep them there. Now we'll go to number 5. Just a little bit of heat. Not a lot of glass there yet. Flip it up, marver it a little bit. That's all of them. It's a little tricky to see sometimes. So we have 3 stacked on top of each other. Now I'm going to do on either side and then 1 on top again. Same color, lavender blue. Go to number 3. Five. I'm really letting the heat do the work. So we don't want them to touch each other. At least not yet. And if you keep your swipes relatively even, sort of, then the petals will be somewhat the same shapes. All right. So we get the start there. Same process. I'm going to heat one side and then the other, and then I'll turn it upright. Gravity is your friend. I've seen people try to marver things upside down, and it's not very helpful to what you want to do. So we get the start of our triangle. So in total, I'm going to put on 9 swipes of lavender blue. That's the inside of our petal.
So that's 6 so far?
Yes,
6 on each.
on each petal, yeah. Your color options in making murrine are pretty much unlimited. Today we're going to use a lot of effitre, and to give a really vibrant ruby color, I'm going to, or pink red color, we're going to use 05 from Reichenbach, which is extra ruby, or ruby. And we're going to use 96, which will really help our flowers have a really bright color. You can easily mix 96 and 104. We were having that conversation here yesterday as to how much you might want to add. Truthfully, I have yet to actually have a murrine crack because I used too much 96. Not down here. But we'll get to that in a minute. And I can see right now, they're not even all even. I have a tendency to put more glass at the front. So I'll even those out so we have a better shape. Some days are better. Knock that in a bit. Whew. Air conditioning moves the flame. Okay, so now I'm going to put the third set here, 7, 8, and 9, again on the outside, so our triangle gets a little bit fatter and a little bit taller. On this side, the other side, on the top.
Are your side swipes going all the way into the valve? Like to the base of the valve?
Yes. So that makes the triangle a tiny bit wider. So it's the same thing that we've been talking about here for the last couple of days. If the swipes are more even, then everything will stay a little more symmetrical. That's not necessarily easy when you start. Correct?
Right. Especially when it's hard to see.
Yeah. Well, so far we've made what I call a dahlia flower, where we cut into the glass. Yesterday we made a small rose. And today is the 6th petal. Those are the basis pretty much of all the murrine you see in my beads. Some of the petals are 5, I make 7 or 8. If you want to make a daisy, then you would make more like 12 maybe for fun. But I find building the murrine from the inside out like this very helpful for control. All right. That's hot. They're getting bigger. So let's melt this one more time.
A valley in between each of the triangles. Is there a space in between the triangles?
Just a tiny bit so far, right? Yeah. When I marver it, you'll see. And I'm pulling the glass, pushing it just shifts everything. So we want to be able to pull it into a nice triangle shape. Whew. Moving. So another thing that we've kind of discovered in the last few days is that starting with stamen cane that are 1.5 inches to 1.75 inches is pretty much ideal. Anything longer will exponentially make our bundle huge. So we've had that experience. So it also works the other way. If you make it much shorter, closer to 1 inch, then you'll see the final process gets a little more tricky because you end up more with a donut. That's also not so helpful. And I'm keeping my mandrel parallel to the table, which also helps the glass from shifting. Particularly when I'm marbling it. Wait a couple seconds, then pull it away from you. One more. You can also make much rounder petals, same way. You can change the whole color combinations. You can add extra stripes of a different color. Kind of unlimited options. Yeah? So we can see, not bad. What?
I like seeing the white on
Yeah, that helps very much for letting you know where you are. So, the same problem. There's always more at the end than there is at this end. Let's add a little more.
it. Are you adding it on the top?
Yeah,
On the top and towards the back.
yeah.
The back has
So like the,
Right, right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not that you could leave it, but if you've gone to all this effort, you may as well get the whole thing. All right. So I've put 9 so far, right? 3 stacked, 2 on either side, and 2 on top again. And we have a triangle. Melt it in.
If you were to ballpark the number of canes that you pulled out this,
If I had to ballpark the number of canes I've made. That's a good question.
100,000.
No, not 100,000, but hundreds, definitely hundreds. I have soup jars, and they've essentially taken over my 8-foot bench. And they're all full, and there are some on the floor at home. Yeah, no, it's a bit. But I get really excited by color, and so I'm always curious, if I change it a little bit, how will this affect it? And if you make your stamen in different ways every time you make a murrine, then you get a really wide variety of flowers. And for the most part, my flowers come from my head. I walk around my neighborhood mostly to look at color. Because sometimes you don't believe that those colors can be possible in nature, but they are. There's some beautiful hot pinks, purples, interesting greens and blues. Okay, so the rod I have in my right hand is that Ruby Reichenbach 96. And that prefers a little more oxygen. I'm going to add a little oxygen here. Put the little garbage glass on the end. Now I'm going to cover that entire triangle right to the base. Overlapping swipes,
You starting at the top going down or?
starting on the inside.
On the inside? starting low and
to the
going
base.
up.
We were building towards the top of the triangle.
Yeah.
See that here? The next side goes in, we maintain the valley in between.
So still leaving the back little space.
Tiny bit. This is such a great color.
Can
If-
you use the Reichenbach 104 also and get the same color?
Yeah. You could definitely use Reichenbach. If you were looking for another pink, you could use double helix rhea or lotus. I've found that every 104 color that you put next to stiff white will lighten up about 2 or 3 shades. So that's why I wanted something that was a little denser. I mean, if this is, you can actually see the pink because it's very thin rod. But a thicker rod, particularly with their amethyst or violet colors that they have, you have to hold them up to the light to even see that they're purple. They just look black. That's how dense the color is. So I'm doing the same thing, right? I covered 1, 3, and 5. Now I'm going to cover 2, 6. But you can use pretty much any color you like. The only thing I would recommend is not putting effetray reds, oranges, or yellows next to stiff white because they have a tendency to turn brown because of the oxides. But you can use Reichenbach 104s. That works really well.
You said no X-ray 1 colors?
No effetray hot colors, essentially, right? Yellow, orange, or red.
That was the one with my senior.
Right. When I'm home alone in my studio, as you all are, I find this very meditative, very quiet. It's essentially the same motion, nice repetition. Usually I have my students' band pieces running around in my head, which can be interesting or not. Mostly when you're building your petals now, you want to make sure that there are no bubbles. The fewer bubbles, the better. And I what? Yeah. It's coming. Upside down, right side up. It's a little different than the cane we made yesterday, right? And then marker. Right to the bottom of the triangle. That's the place that will trap the most air.
Is the ruby touching?
No, the ruby, we have ruby here and they're not touching. There's a tiny millimeter, less than a millimeter space. When I add the stiff white, it'll be almost touching. just needs to be glowing. It doesn't need to be dripping hot. Just enough for me to move it, right? But it needs to be evenly hot. If you wait a couple seconds, then it's easier to marver. All right. Yeah, not bad. Fairly even. Yeah.
Cool, very cool.
So I think we have a little time. I'm going to add extra thin stripes, one on either side, and that'll give us a little more color, a little more depth at that place. I'll just put that here. So your whole flower can change completely with whether little extras you add.
Same color, right? Or is that-
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Same color, a little more ruby. Okay. Now I have to marble it in again. If I leave it unmarvered, right, like if I just added the stiff white on top of this now, I'd stand a good chance of getting a lot of bubbles. So it's worth that extra couple minutes.
When you're shaping, are you skipping, are you going like every other?
Yeah,
Just
so
to
when I
disperse
shape,
the-
I do number 1 petal, and then number 3 petal, and then number 5. Yeah, that keeps the heat even all the time, so your bundle or your gather won't crack, right? Yeah. Reichenbach has a whole wonderful set of colors that you can use. I've made blue flowers and purple flowers, green. They also have a whole line of opaques in 96 and 104. I think probably one color to be a little wary of is using huge amounts of 96 green because, again, of those oxides. Too much is too much. Right? Now we're going to add the stiff white. I'm going to do exactly what I did before. I'm going to go to the base. It's close to the, what do we call that? The valley, the divot, the bottom of our triangle. I'm going to keep the heat in front of the white so that it goes on as evenly as possible. My layers are overlapping, and I'm not actually like going really fast, so I have a good layer of white. And this glass is amazing. If it gets heated up right, you'll see in a minute, it starts to turn this gorgeous blue color, which we've all been enjoying in the last few days. And you can also see that it looks like I left spaces there. That's just the glass. It's definitely covered in white. Sometimes, depending upon how much oxygen you have in your flame, the 96 ruby will start to turn a little gray, so it's devitrifying a little bit. So add a little more oxygen or turn down your propane. It's not terrible if it starts to do that, and often it will go away and you won't see it anyways, but a balanced flame is nicer.
With something that size, do you have a general idea of how many murrine that would make other than a whole lot?
Chances are, well, when we pull it out, we can see, chances are it's going to make somewhere between 4 and 5 feet of cane. Depends how thick you've pulled the cane. How many flowers that makes. One second. So this is a good thing to remember that, yeah, it's already happening. So by skipping, once we put the stiff white on, the ends have a tendency to get a little cool. So go back and warm those up. Otherwise, they do pop off. I've seen that happen. How many flowers? Well, most of the flowers that I put into a bead are somewhere around 2 to 3 millimeters. So thin, so less than 1/8 of an inch, right? Is that right? Yeah. So if you add 4 feet of cane, that's a lot of flowers. Yeah. Hundreds, probably. And I get as close in there as I can. Just gives a nicer flower, I think. Behind you, Jordan, is some lovely thick rod zephyr. Why don't we do that?
What happens if you use a different white, like stick white?
So if I use different whites or even some other opaque color, I've found that if I use Evitre or Sim, once I pull them out, thank you. Once I pull them out and then put that cane into a flower, it loses its edge, right? Like the definition. So that's really the reason to use stiff white. It's much more dense than anything else. And even though we also had this conversation, you know, it's labeled as a 104 glass, but it definitely doesn't feel like a 104 glass in my hand. So it has, I think the reason it works is because the viscosity between the glasses is okay, right? Works together. Right. Good. Marvering time. depending upon how much heat you put in here, it's going to look like all your white is gone away. But it hasn't. It's there. It just turns very clear. And you get more of a pink showing through. Same thing, be careful of your ends. Make sure there are no bubbles. Once you put that cane into your flower or into your bead, you'll see that come to the surface. And the cane will probably crack as you're trying to apply it. Because the bubble will travel down the whole length of the tube. We don't need that. I'm getting as much into that groove as I can, because that's where we need it to be smooth as possible. Yeah. Right. I like to use a very small marker for this. This one is well used. That's the groove for the mandrel. But that allows me to get right into those small crevices. Something bigger truthfully, won't work. Doesn't work very easily. So I'm going to heat those grooves and make sure that it's smooth in here.
Hi Carol, we got an online question that asked me which manual holder do you use?
Oh, so the mandrel in my hand is a tool made by Alex Cheng in Thailand. He and I designed those together last January. It's just a larger mandrel with a nice wooden handle and a screw here, right, that holds it. And you'll see in a minute when I take this murrine off. When I take the murrine off the mandrel and put it on the punties, I have to heat that up. And so as that stainless steel essentially wears out from all the heat that we apply to it, you can just move the mandrel up. So it's a fantastic tool because it's for life. And these handles are made out of teak, which is very expensive in North America and very inexpensive in Thailand. How's that?
Beautiful.
Thank you. We're doing good, I think. Yeah. All right. I love my Bravo because it also has an outer ring, which we Is that hot? And it allows me to melt clear very easily. These two, right? Alright. Work slowly. Let your glass rod melt gently. Then I'm going to work farther out from the face of the torch. And I'm going to heat where that valley divot right at the bottom of the triangle is. So the glass, the clear glass that I'm going to put in there flows a little easier, just for a few seconds. Then you want this gather to be as hot as you can get it. Well, not as you can get it, but it needs to be very hot. Then I'm going to slowly push it down to the other end so that it goes right to the bottom. And I'm going to go back right away and fill that in. My clear rod is in the flame. I'm just letting the glass melt. Okay. Then the same process. Skip one. Yeah, you heard that. I heard that. Hopefully we're fine. So we're going to fill those in as much as we can. And then we'll go around again after I get them all going here. You can see the clear make contact with the bottom. It's a good way to know you don't have any air trapped. If you make really tall triangles, it can possibly get a little more tricky to get the glass to the bottom. But once you make a few, you have an idea how high you can go. So your petals can be taller or bigger or rounder. And where you add the clear keeps the petals apart, and that determines the shape that you end up with, the negative space. So I am pushing a bit. That's 6? I think so. So now just the peak is left. You can do one of two things. You can put very hot clear right directly on the top and make a swipe like that. Or you can, you know, if there's lots of white showing, then you can build it up on one side and then the other. both work. Doesn't need to be massively thick, just enough to cover. One more. Okay, so it still looks a bit too much, right? It's not quite round yet. We need to make sure that there's more clear in between the petals where we originally added it. Because we all know everything is going to become round once we start to melt it. And we want to keep that triangle shape, our 6 petals, standing up. Not that one. Okay. So I like to heat everything from the middle because both faces are still actually a little bit open, right? We haven't closed the ends. So if you've got some bubbles, there's always bubbles, but if you've got some bubbles, then hopefully the air goes one way or the other. So as I said, that original, the stamen and cane on the inside was 2 centimeters. Try not to make it humongous the first time you make it, because you'll find it's very heavy on your arm for starts, and then it takes a while before you have experience with big bundles like this. Okay, so I'm going to put a little heat on the front and pull the clear over the ends a bit. You don't want any stiff white sticking out because that really bubbles up, devitrifies, makes everything unhappy. Okay, same thing a little bit on the back end. When I first started making cane, I had a miner, or a mega miner at home, and a 15-liter concentrator, which of course gave me quite a bit of heat in relative terms. But some of the murrine cane that I made was even bigger than this. So once you start the melting process, it took, I don't know, sometimes it would take like a good 40 minutes to melt something. It's pretty hot. That's why it's wiggling around. Okay, now we're just going to cover the face here with some more clear. I thought I had a long one. Here we go. That's it. And for the last few days, we've been using very thick 1-inch cabochon mandrels as our punties. As opposed to a borosilicate rod or a thick rod of effetray. And I must say I like using the metal or the stainless steel because they don't crack. And you end up with far less falling on the floor by accident. And also you don't have to use as much clear on the end as a cap. So I'm going to cover that completely and add a little bit more. Make sure it goes completely around the white and joins the clear that you put on before. Heat up your cabochon. You want to remove the beads, please, and the marble. So you're going to get this to its almost glowing state, right? It will turn red. Heat the face of your murrine so it's hot. Hot will join with hot. Take it out. I want that over here. So you can see, put it in the center, wait for it to set up a bit, otherwise it wiggles. Then I'm going to go farther out in the flame and work towards my left hand to really make sure, because it's much cooler now, we don't want it to crack, jump down your shirt, any of that. And like I was saying a few minutes ago, I'm going to heat that stainless steel mandrel until it's glowing, not to gather, and then once it's hot enough, I can pull it out. So check to see, you can see if this turns red easily when you put it back in the flame, you know it's hot. I put this far enough over. Heat them both again. You don't have to do that. Then we're going to do, try and heat as much of this as possible. So I'm going to put, wow, it's windy. About a third or half of the murrine in the flame. Try and do it as diagonally as possible. And turn slowly to start with so that the heat sinks in. Depends how hot your torch is, because this is pretty hot. And you'll start to see whether you manage to get the clear to the bottom of that triangle. Not bad. Other side. And then I'm going to direct the heat in between our triangles, so back into that divot. And now it's starting to melt quite a bit on the outside quickly, so you don't want to make it the clear move so fast that the white completely swings around. It's still white, so it's pretty thin, or it moves easily. So I heat it a bit, and then I'm going to take it out of the flame to essentially let the heat sink to the inside, and the outside will cool a bit. Starting to glow. Always a good sign. Yeah, my white is moving. So let's take it out, let it soak, and it moves a little bit so far. I'll get it to go a little more. Little bubbles at the end of each of those rows is fine. That's pretty normal. It's kind of hard not to have them. I have particularly short arms for someone my height, so I like to pull this out in stages, one pull after another. So I'm going to heat about 2/3 of the murrine. I like to go with my left hand first, so I'm going to make that hotter, leave the right hand side a little bit cooler at the moment. So I'm going to have to pull my chair back. So that's pretty soupy, yeah? All right, I think we're ready to go. Jordan, can you move that armrest a little bit? Thank you. So I'm going to wait for it to the heat to even out a little bit. Pull slowly. And that tiny bit at the end is going to have bubbles anyway, so I'm not worried about that. And now you can see it's moving really easily. So if that's the size of cane you want, blow on it. I'm still pulling a little bit. As you can see, my right hand is still hot. Here's my short arms. Okay. It's hardened a little bit, so I'm going to fling it on the bench. Cut it off. This back up. Put it back in the flame. We've named this end of the murrine the garlic bulb. We're going to hold that diagonally so that I have more heat there and a bit up there until this starts to warm up again. This makes everything easier to pull. It's starting to sag. So be very careful, because this is still really hot, of course. Just don't want to stick this end right into the flame. So I'm at the end, and I'm going to add a little bit of transparent to pull this again. So both sides need to have a little molten glass on them. Attach that. Let it set a bit. Now, the part I really like about pulling things this way is I have options as to the thickness of my cane. So if I pull really fast now, I'm going to have some thinner pieces. Thinner cane. And then if you slow down, I'm still putting this back into the heat a bit. If you slow down, then it will get thicker again. For the most part, somewhere between 2 and 6 millimeters, or 2 and 8 millimeters, depends what you like to do. And because I don't cut the cane into chips, I use the whole rod when I apply them into the bead. You save a lot of cane this way, I think. Is that you? So you can see a couple big bubbles here, but I think we're good as far as getting 4 or 5 feet. Just try not to twist it. Once you get enough heat in there, you can also pull it really easily. So the heat is behind what you want to pull. And if I go slow enough, I'll get sort of medium width here to give me a good variety. Pull straight. There we go. Woo. Hot. Yeah. Still really hot. Put that in here. Yay! Thank you. Does it work?